All right, we're talking about beholders today. So I wanted to ask you, because they actually say in a couple of places, in a couple of books, they talk about beholders sleeping. They also talk about how beholders are consistently levitating. What does your beholder look like when it sleeps? Now, all of the little eye stalks are still open and moving around. We're going to talk about that later. But, like, do they lay on the floor? They're balls, like they're spheres. do they just laying on their side on the ground while their eye stalks are looking around? Or
do they stop levitating when they sleep?
It doesn't say. I'm curious. How would you guys play it? Your beholder is asleep. You are DMing. The beholder is asleep. The party sneaks in. The rogue gets ahead, peeks around the corner, succeeds in a perception check. What do they see? Is it just like listing to the left and rotating in the air?
Well, should we roll for it?
Sure.
18.
Dave brought me to a 19. You get a 10. Okay,
10.
So, no, for me, I like the idea of it just like slowly rotating.
Yeah.
Just very, very slowly rotating at kind of like a 15-degree angle.
Right.
And just maybe tongue hanging out the side like a dog.
I like the tongue.
Yeah, and snoring.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they have noses. Most of them that I've seen don't, but I assume that it snores. Terry, what
it's
do
a
you got?
mouth breather.
Yeah.
I like the idea of it. As we would as humans, we would lose our balance if we were to fall asleep. But of course, they're constantly levitating, so they just like slip a little bit. Like they'll just either fall forwards or backwards or to the side. And for a party to come across one, like if it just fell forwards, for example, it would just look like a big ball sack. Like you wouldn't. And like I just like the idea of the barbarian being like, What is that? And like maybe poking it a little bit, or just falling backwards so the eye is just pointing up towards the sky.
Oh, you know that head nod that people do when they're like almost asleep and they're like, oh, all right, I'm awake, and they like snap their head back,
and then a ray goes off.
Yeah, it's just doing that all the time.
Disintegrate.
Nice. I like the idea of it just like going to sit on the ground in a corner, and then that way, maybe you change it up a little bit. I would maybe make it gray, to match the rock, and then they're just like walking through a dark room, and then an eye opens on the ground looking up at them.
Or like 10 little eyes pop up from behind it.
Yeah. Like use it sleeping in its environment to kind of mess with the people walking through the room.
Yeah.
I like that. Do you think that it casts sleep on itself to go to sleep?
I mean, that would be fantastic.
Like, I'm tired of the rest of the day. I'm just having a bad day. I'm going to bed. Down he goes.
I mean, would you do that? Like,
would it work?
As a player
Why
character?
wouldn't it work? They're not immune to sleep.
Do you get a good night's sleep, or is it just like passing out when you're drunk? Like, it doesn't really regenerate you in any way. You just.
I'm confused to the concept of a good night's sleep. What are you talking about?
What is that?
Yeah.
What is that when you're not constantly thinking about the impending doom?
Oh, is that your issue? I'm prepping podcasts.
Okay. I was scrolling through all of the episode info, and I was like, Adam's prepped until episode 246.
Yes. Yes, I am. We're on episode 85, I think. So, yeah. Although a lot of it is just Dan, do better. Terry, less dick jokes.
Yeah.
That's all. It's all the show notes. So.
Welcome to the It's a Mimic podcast with your DMs, Adam, Terry, and Dave.
Welcome to another episode of the It's a Mimic podcast, the round table.
Leave it in.
Welcome to another episode of the It's a Mimic podcast, the round table Dungeons and Dragons discussion, where you never know what you're going to get. I'm Adam, and with me today are Terry and Dave, and we're talking about beholders. Guys, have you used beholders in your campaign? Have you DM'd a beholder before?
I've actually never DM'd a beholder, but it's on my bucket list for sure.
I mean, if I have, it was not of note. And I did recently use a Spectator, though.
Well, there's the Spectator in Mines of Fandover, right? That's where you found it?
Yeah, that's where I did it, yeah.
I mean, spoiler alert. But there's a lot of people out there that love beholders, but I don't think ever really get to use them.
Yeah.
Or if they do, they throw them into a homebrew, and they're not... Beholders are very, very specific in what they are. And I think people just use them as crazy random eye rays of crazy batshit. There's a lot of role-playing potential with these guys, right?
So I think that's why I would like to do it. Because I would go very deep into that.
Have you fought a beholder?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, you fought a Beholder proper. You also fought a Death Tyrant. It didn't go well.
Yeah, it didn't. I died.
We spoke to the one in your Tuesday campaign,
Yep.
but we didn't fight it, or like, we just chatted a little bit.
Yeah, he was chained up over.
Don't speak, only stab.
Pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah.
So, do you guys like fighting them? Are they scary?
They are scary. They're scary because they are so unpredictable. It's hard to predict how the battle is going to go. Mm-hmm. It can go in so many different directions, and there's so many variables. There's no way to predict it, and they're very difficult to prepare for.
As a dungeon master, they frustrate the shit out of me to run because they're so iconic. They're so classic. I love running them, but they are absolutely a nightmare to prep because you don't know what your damage output's going to be.
Yeah,
you can't figure out what your strategy is going to be. And they actually get into it in Volos about actual battle strategies and what to do.
Oh, that's good.
Which is fantastic. I wish I'd had access to that book when I ran the last one, because you guys ran one who was trapped. You guys fought one that was trapped, and that was scary. Scary enough. I tend not to let them move, because when I let them move, they outright murder characters.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're very hit and run. But let's get into it. For those of you who don't know, Beholders are the, I guess, second most famous enemy in Dungeons and Dragons. The first being, of course, Dungeons. So,
Beholders are a classic. Like that, when I think Dungeons and Dragons, Beholders are one of my go-tos.
You know, we didn't want Dan on this episode because he rants about what they did in the D&D movie to Beholders. They turned them into guard dogs.
Yeah.
Right? And
I've been thinking about those the whole time we've been here, and will continue to the whole time.
I was actually just listening to the Paladins episode on the way up, and as I turned it off, he was talking about the Dungeons and Dragons movie. So, yeah.
He hates that movie, something fierce. So, which makes me happy on the insides. So let's get into what a Beholder is. Beholder proper in 5th edition, because a lot of people are carrying over what a Beholder was from previous editions, and they've really refined it and made it very specific. Now, there's a lot of shit that goes into Beholder layers. For transparency's sake, we are going to get into a second episode of Beholders the next time we circle back to monsters, and that's when we're going to cover the Beholder layers. So we're not going to worry too much about that shit today. We're going to focus on the main Beholder, and in my opinion, the two most common ones that you will run into in a D&D campaign, not including the Death Tyrant, because that's a beast unto itself. So, it says right at the beginning of Volos that Beholders are largely unfathomable, but here's what we know. They're aberrations with spherical bodies that always hover above the ground. The face of a Beholder has only 2 features: a large glaring eye, and a slaverish maw full of horrifying sharp teeth. Protruding from seemingly random places on their bodies are a number of strong, twisting eye stalks that can move and swivel to see in any direction. While the big central eye does close when the Beholder is asleep, the other smaller eyes stay vigilant. This means that Beholders never truly sleep and are always semi-conscious. This is important later. They're greedy, paranoid, self-righteous megalomaniacs who are full of rage and pride. They're convinced that everyone is out to get them, and no one can be trusted because everyone is jealous of their towering intellects and raw eldritch powers. Everyone is an enemy, even other Beholders, because the physicality of Beholders varies greatly. Each Beholder sees all others as lesser, imperfect beings compared to themselves, much like Terry at the beach. The texture of skin, the flexibility of the eye stalks, and the coloration and facial features can be wildly different from Beholder to Beholder. So there's a sense of individuality, and their own personal individual perfection is very specific to each single Beholder. Lesser beings that aren't threats are seen as minions, pets, or food. Mostly food. They believe that the only creatures capable of truly threatening them are other Beholders, but there are some that will scheme and plot against them, and sometimes one of these lesser foes might show enough power to gain a modicum of respect from a Beholder. So they'll opt to charm the creature or put them to sleep instead of killing them and eating them. But this is not a good thing, because when this happens, they then interrogate, subjugate, and break the will of this person, then giving them the ability to join their ranks as a minion. Despite the fact that some will have little crews of minions, most beholders are solitary. They're hiding in twisting, confusing layers that they've bored out with a Disintegration Ray, but some find their way closer to civilizations, living under cities and running evil empires full of weak servants that they tend to send out to do their bidding. These tyrannical monsters often find themselves running organized crime rings, heading guilds, or becoming warlords, not warloads.
Warlords?
It's a little different. Yeah.
A load of war.
Yeah.
Yes.
These are known as eye tyrants. They're not actually a monster type. They're just relatively like colloquially. What word?
Colloquially.
There it is.
You haven't made this many fuck-ups in 85 episodes.
I am so tired today because I don't sleep. I just hover.
With your eye stalks open?
With my, well, kind of. So, yes, that's the local slang. There we go. I found another way to say it. Spoiler alert, Xanathar. The Xanathar is one of these. Mm-hmm. And you actually get to deal with him quite a bit in the Waterdeep series.
Right.
So,
and Xanathar is not his or her name; it's a title. Is it? That's right.
I think it's his name. Oh, I'm pretty sure that's his name. Yeah. A lot of what we know about beholders is that they often have motivations and objectives that make them seem like they make sense to humanoids at first, but when you dig deeper into their strange and towering intellects, it's clear that their intentions are far from normal. If people think in black and white and gray, and the Fae think in what we call blue-orange mentality, beholders think in a texture of magenta and deep teal shadows with purple auras and lime green stripes.
Is that what it says?
I don't know what that means, but there it is.
I think that's the point, is we have no way to fathom it. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Their intelligence is so high that they don't just see a few moves ahead like an average person does. They see every possible eventuality and plan for them all simultaneously. This is often interpreted as the most extreme version of paranoia, but it just means that they'd make good dungeon masters.
Yeah.
They can see two completely unrelated events and imagine all sorts of ways that they might be related or be part of some enemy's evil scheme. And by seeing these things from different perspectives, pun intended, they are truly prepared for every potential scenario. With plans on top of plans, they are nigh impossible to surprise or outwit. Which makes these incredibly daunting to run as a dungeon master.
Right.
They do have layers, which means they get layer actions and regional effects. It also means that they're legendary creatures, which means they get legendary actions, but they don't get legendary resistances, which most do. So that was a little surprising to me. They also very specifically get layers because, according to the lore, they have alien mindsets and bizarre kinds of perception that they use to warp and shape their surroundings with sheer malevolent willpower. Remember how I said that they never really sleep? Their bodies do slumber a little, but their minds never stop. And sometimes they dream of other beholders. And occasionally, when that happens, they will dream a new beholder into existence. Most of the time, this means that the two will fight to the death. Most beholders have killed the ones who spawned them because of this. This is the only known way that they reproduce.
You know, now that you mention it, I totally did fight these in my Wednesday group with Justin.
Yeah?
Yeah, because we were getting into trouble, so he had one dream up another one. Or somebody put one to sleep or something, but one dreamed up another one. So now that you say it, yes, I have fought these.
I would love, a random table of what a beholder is dreaming about for such an event that if you know you have a spellcaster that has a sleep spell in the party, if they do that, okay, well, let's roll on the beholder sleep table.
Oh, wait, it gets worse. Occasionally, a beholder will dream about its own reflection, or it will have a fractured sense of self, much like multiple personality disorder, and they will all be dreaming at the same time. And when this happens, it spawns multiple smaller versions of itself, which it sees as extensions of its own being. And this is called a beholder hive, and it is not to be fucked with. They all treat each other as siblings, and they're so similar that they often predict each other's actions intuitively. There can be up to 10 of these beholders, plus the original, plus minions, with layer actions and regional effects.
It's almost permission to metagame as a D&D as a D&D, as a DM, because you could say, well, I moved this one here because this one knew that this one was going to do this, and so this is why they're all my pieces are here.
Yeah, I do that kind of when I've got like an army running forward. I know that if I've got 3 orcs that are a strike team, they know what the other ones are kind of going to do. But this is in perfect tandem. I get to control everything. A beholder itself is CR 13. It says in the monster manual that when you put it in a lair, it's CR 14. There's no real stat about the beholder hive. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, 10 CR 13 creatures, technically CR 14 creatures, plus the original, plus minions, that's a dungeon crawl. That's a dungeon crawl where you're fighting 2 or 3 beholders a session.
Right.
For a few sessions. That's nutty. I don't know how I would feel about having to conquer that as a player.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a lot.
Especially because it's wildly, radically different. Now, before we get into beholder stats like we normally do, I wanted to go over some of the stuff that's in Volos because we have an entire section about it here. First and foremost, one thing that's really common with all the different types of beholders, because they've got what are called beholder kin, because there's a number of diet beholders, beholder 0, right? Beholder light, with lime. They most of them have this anti-magic cone that comes out of the front of the eye, right? And so I wanted to address that they cannot use their powers inside this cone.
Right, okay.
So while the cone is really good for locking down a spellcaster so that they can't move, and they can't cast spells while you're looking at them, you also can't shoot into this. So while you knock them out, you can't really do much else at first. So they want you to be using your legendary actions. They want you to use the anti-magic freely. They want you to use eye rays to the best of your effect, and they want you to stay out of range and out of sight. The idea here is that, I know we said we talk about layers, but their layers are catacombs, and they're difficult to maneuver through because they think vertically because they can levitate. So it's very hard for people to move around, which is what killed Terry's character, right? Duke died because this death tyrant was popping up and down out of holes, and there was a whole like cavern system beneath where you guys were, where it was moving around, and you couldn't get to it. It would pop up, hit you, and disappear.
It was perfect D&D for me because I went through fear, excitement of the you know how I am. I'm like I was so excited, but because the lair was so good, but also I died. So
now they've got a bunch of different rays, and I will get into it. We'll each get into it when we get into the breakdowns. But they've got variant abilities as well in here. And when we come up with these, as we start to talk about them all, I'm going to give you what the variants are, so that when you think about these hives with all of these different beholders, it's not going to be the same carbon copy over and over again, because each one of the potential rays has a bunch of different spells that you can use instead of an equal level. All right, so that being said, I'm on the regular beholder. What do you guys have?
I have Spectator.
I've got the Gazer.
All right, let's roll and see who's going to be covering what.
Sure.
First. I got a 16.
I got 10.
Oh, you bumped me to an 8. I'm going last. Dave, you're at 12.
I got 12. Oh.
We're starting with the little guy first.
We're working our way up in size.
Yeah, this guy...
Beholders, not you know what I'm saying. Penises.
What are you saying? Oh, okay.
No, also that.
Oh. Well, I'll have you know this one is 8 inches wide. Okay.
Well then.
Legitimately, the Gazer it's small. It's only 8 inches wide. These things are a CR half, so they're not particularly difficult. These are tiny manifestations of beholder dreams. They look like a beholder, but they're obviously, again, a lot smaller. And they've got 4 eye stalks, and each one can do something different, right?
Yeah.
So these things have an AC of 13 and also 13 hit points. They have a fly speed of 30 feet.
What CR are they?
Half.
Yeah, okay. They're living up to that then.
Yeah, I mean, their strength is 3. Their dex is pretty good at a 17. Con is a 14. Intelligence 3. Wisdom 10. Charisma 7. So these things are not super strong. They're, well balanced. For skills, they only do perception and stealth, and they are immune to being prone, which is that the same for most beholders?
Yes, they're all immune to being prone.
Yeah, these things also have dark vision. Now, they don't speak a language, okay? Instead, they have an ability called Mimicry, which just allows them to mimic other noises and sounds that they've heard. And I believe that it says here that when they speak, it's in high-pitched in a mocking manner. So it's like, go open the door. You open the door. Right? Every time they go in.
I would love that.
So they're annoying little pests, right?
I gave one of these to a player as a familiar,
Yeah.
and it was...
How'd that work out?
I took away the ability to be mocking, and instead I gave... his name was Bubbles.
Bubbles, that's the name. I was trying to
Yeah,
think of the name.
and all he could do...
God.
and he was just angry.
The emotion through the bubbles, that's right. I don't know what he wants.
and then I raised. Often at the players.
That's that's on point. Yeah, they will attack just about anything that's smaller than them, or small children or whatever. They kind of got a mind of their own, and they do gravitate towards people that will also attack others. They're confrontational, and they like people that are confrontational.
They're okay. So these guys are hyper aggressive as well. Most beholders are aggressive.
They are. Now, in addition to mimicry, they've also got the aggressive trait, which just allows them to move up to their speed as a bonus action. But it has to be towards a hostile creature that it can see.
No, they're just charging. These are just guard dogs.
Essentially, they're little 8-inch guard dogs.
They're like angry little terriers.
Oh.
Yeah. They do get a bite attack, which is the +5 to hit, and does a whole 1 piercing damage. You don't even roll for it. It's just 1 damage.
Yeah.
All right. And they do have 4 eye rays. Now, on their turn, they can shoot up to 2 of them per turn. And they can choose the same one twice. It's that's fine. And it can either be 1 or 2 targets.
Do you roll randomly?
No, they get to pick what it is. They have to be able to see it within 60 feet, which I thought was a pretty good range for some of these. Like 60 feet, that's pretty good. The 4 eye rays it has. The first one is Dazing Ray. The target creature must succeed on a DC 12 Wisdom save or be charmed until the start of the Gazer's next turn. While the target is charmed this way, its speed is halved and has disadvantage on attack rolls. Pretty straightforward. There's the Fear Ray. The targeted creature must succeed on a DC 12 Wisdom saving throw or be frightened until the start of the Gazer's next turn. It's not too bad.
Yeah.
Frost Ray. The targeted creature must succeed on a DC 12 Dex save or take 3d6 cold damage. Again, not bad. And I like this one the best. The Telekinetic Ray, the number 4.
Yeah.
If the target is a creature that is medium or smaller, it must succeed on a DC 12 strength save or be moved up to 30 feet directly away. Which, I like the idea of these things just kind of pushing people away.
I love it. Whenever you can affect movement or manipulate somebody's position on a board, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
The other neat thing that I think would make these things a great familiar is that with the Telekinetic Ray, they can also perform like very precise actions, like opening a jar or opening a door and stuff like that. So they would be great to have kicking around. They can do these fine-tuned things just by looking at it.
If they want to.
If they want to.
Dicks.
Yeah, like, can you open that jar for me? Smash! Right?
Yeah,
Open the door for me.
Like, it can open it like dexterously if it wanted to, but it just fires it across the room.
Yeah, right?
Same thing.
Things are a pain in the ass, and I think they would be a lot of fun to have as a familiar. In fact, they give you a variant of the Gazer to be a familiar. Spellcasters who are interested in unusual familiars find that Gazers are eager to serve someone who has magical power. And like I said, especially those that make a point to bully others around them. They like the shit disturbers. If they become a familiar, they form a telepathic bond with its willing master, but the master has to be a 3rd level spellcaster or higher.
I feel really bad for the spellcaster that has to share a brain with one of these things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, while the two are bonded, the master can sense what the Gazer senses as long as they are within 1 mile of each other. If the master causes
like
physical
what? Like they
harm,
both notice titties at the same time? Just like give each other the eyebrow raise, right? You get that?
the eyebrow.
Yeah, like the double wolf whistle.
It's like the idea of the one eyebrow going up. It's like, hey,
Does the central eye have a power for the gazer?
not that I'm aware
No.
of.
Okay.
Also, if the master causes it physical harm, then the gazer will end its service as a familiar, breaking the telepathic bond. So these things can just,
They're fickle.
screw off when they want to.
Moody.
Yeah.
I imagine. Yeah.
But, I mean, that's really all there is on these things. There's not, like I said, a lot to them. They just do, the aggressive and mimicry. And then, of course, their forays.
I love these things. I'm gonna give this as a Pact of the Chain Warlock for great old one.
Yeah.
Right?
I see it as a warlock. Yeah.
That
warlock.
aberration feel to it, right?
Yeah, no, these things are neat. There's even a little blurb at the top of the page here. A note from Volo. It says, I walked into a bar and somebody had one of these and it threw me against the wall.
Yeah.
I almost spilled my beer.
Yeah.
They're set. They're not set pieces, but they're there to play with. They can add a good.
I see this as what pops out when either you intended to summon something else and you fucked it up, or you were trying to do something else and this happened and now you're stuck with it. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason, it has imprinted itself on you, the warlock.
It's not going away.
Yeah. You ask your patron for a gift and you fuck it up somehow and this comes out and you're like, great, well, thanks.
I love the idea of you having to go up against a 6th level warlock or something who's evil, and he's got 10 of these fucking things.
Yeah.
And the encounter is a decent, that's a CR 8 encounter probably, as he's just throwing gazers at you, tossing you around the board. Maybe there's a ledge nearby or a vat of acid or something, and they just keep throwing you around and hitting you with charm rays, and they could fuck up a level 8 party.
Yeah.
The thing that I didn't mention here that changes all of that is that it shoots 2 of the rays at random. You got to roll a d4 for them.
Oh no, so it is random. So you don't choose.
No, I suppose not. Sorry, I missed that part.
But the same one can happen twice if you land the same number twice.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. So but that's a lot. That's every kind of beholder has to roll. I believe. Terry, is that true for the spectators?
No, it's not for the spectator.
It's interesting because they're the only ones that aren't evil, right?
Yeah. No, they're lawful neutral.
What's a gazer? They sound chaotic evil.
They're neutral evil.
Neutral evil. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I really like these guys. They're tons of fun, especially because they mock people. I like the idea too of you don't know it's there and you're going through the caverns, and every time someone's like, "Hey, be quiet," you, "Hey, be quiet."
Yeah.
It's like, oh, what the fuck is that? And they don't think it's a goblin or a kobold mocking them or something. And then this little bastard pops up. One eye stalk pops up, shoots something. You don't know what till you roll it, and then flies away. What is it? 30 feet movement?
Yeah, 30 feet. But with the aggressive, it can move that as well.
But no, but I mean for retreating. But they're little. They can go through little holes in the wall. They can go through the ceiling, right? Or down through sewer grates and shit too. So this could be a really fun pest.
Absolutely. It says even right in the book that they're looking for lone creatures to not attack, but harass. Right? They're not looking to have a confrontation. They just want to piss you off.
I like the idea of hey, didn't there used to be a kobold warren on the outskirts of town? What happened to them? I don't know. No idea what happened to them. There's just a one gazer in the middle of this warren now. It's like, and all the kobolds are fucked up. They just couldn't handle this fucking gazer anymore.
Yeah. Or you come across a gazer and then a dead body where they've clearly just put their own brains out with a crossbow or something. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Before we get on to the next one, let's cut to a commercial really quickly. We're doing Wildbot 3D again because they've got all the condition markers as well, which are really helpful, especially when it comes to tracking beholder shit. So, not literally beholder shit, but shit. Hi everybody, it's Adam, and once again we're dedicating a full episode to conditions and condition effects in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. And we can't have these conversations without discussing our old friend, WildBot 3D. WildBot 3D has really revamped their website since the last time we discussed them on the show, and you should definitely check out the updated options there. They still have those glorious tracker rings that display the conditions in 3D on your gaming table, and they fit so beautifully around standard medium-sized minis and cover nearly everything we've been discussing on these condition-heavy episodes. They're color-coded, easy to read, unique, and fun to add to all of your D&D games. I use them in my own game all the time, and I've come to rely on them to keep track of which character has what spell or condition affecting them. My personal favorite is the enlarged tracker, but they're all great for both DMs and players alike to buy. Monks that stun, clerics that curse, and warlocks that hex, there are tracker rings for you in here too. But WildBot 3D offers more than just these tracker rings now. There are also unique character sheets for martial and caster classes, there's beautiful dice, and hilarious D&D themed t-shirts. My next purchase is going to be the Initiative Tracker Rings, which help display who's going in which order, and are incredibly useful for keeping track of multiple monsters on your map. These things are a game changer, so head on over to wildbot3d.com and check them out on Instagram. But for now, let's head on back to the discussion. Okay, so we're back, and Terry, you're up next.
I have Spectators, which I'm actually really excited that this, because for everybody out there, I'm actually covering for Dan tonight, and so he was supposed to be doing Spectators, but now I'm doing Spectators, and I'm excited about it. So, a Spectator is a lesser beholder that is summoned from another plane of existence by a magical ritual, the components of which include 4 beholder eye stalks that are consumed by the ritual's magic. Appropriately, a Spectator has 4 eye stalks, 2 on each side of the wide eye at the center of its 4-foot diameter body. And I love these different elements of the Spectator as well, so let's go through them here. So, Magical Guardians. A summoned Spectator guards a location or a treasure of its summoner's choice for 101 years, allowing no creature but its summoner to enter the area or access the item, unless the summoner instructed otherwise. If the item is stolen or destroyed before the years have all passed, a summoned Spectator vanishes. It otherwise never abandons its post. I just want to touch on that for a second, whether or not you guys enjoy that aspect of it or not, because I've actually played with that in Adam's game where you ran a Spectator, and it was lots of fun. I was just saying to you before the podcast, I didn't realize, because I didn't know much about Spectators at the time, that you were sticking so closely to the lore, but it is a very fun element of it.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked them as guard dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're great just kind of hanging around. They might have the secrets of the dungeon they're in. You know, they're kind of wealth of information, right?
And this next part I love as well, this part of Beholder Kin. Glimmers of Madness. Though it can speak, a Spectator communicates primarily by way of telepathy. It is civil while on guard, openly discussing its orders of its summoner. However, even a brief conversation with a Spectator is enough to reveal quirks in its personality, brought on by its years of isolation. It might invent imaginary enemies, refer to itself in the third person, or try to adopt the voice of its summoner. Like any beholder, a Spectator views itself as the epitome of its kind, and it has an intense hatred of other Spectators. If 2 Spectators encounter one another, they almost always fight to the death, which is pretty common of beholder kind anyway.
Yeah.
Now, would that be, do either of you know, would it be Spectator on Spectator? What about if a Spectator comes across a, beholder proper? Is it going to have that same aggression, or is it going to recognize that it probably shouldn't attack that?
There's a bit of a hierarchy, isn't there?
We know there is because there's CR ratings, but not really.
They genuinely believe that they're the best of their kind.
Yeah.
Freed from service. When a Spectator has fulfilled its service, it is free to do as it pleases. Many take up residence in the places they previously guarded, especially if their summoners have died. With the Spectator's loss of purpose, the flickers of madness it displayed during its servitude flourish. That's funny that even when 101 years of service are done, they just choose to stay where they are anyway.
Yeah. Well, they've been summoned directly to this plane, and it's implied that they're summoned from the far realms, right? Because they're aberrations. And you got to imagine that the physics and stuff are different here than they are there. So this is probably all they know of this plane in the first place.
Right, like the whole room type thing. They don't know anything outside of the room. That they think this is the existence.
Yeah, and why would I bother to go out there when I've got everything I need in here?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's strange for us because that's so not human to think like that. Yeah. Okay, well, let's get into the mechanics and the stats then. So Spectator is a medium aberration. It's lawful neutral. AC 14 with its natural armor. Standard hit points at 39. Speed is 0 feet, but it flies for 30 feet. That's because it hovers. Strength 8, Dex 14, Con 14, Intelligence 13, Wisdom 14, Charisma 11. So condition immunity is prone. It does have dark vision of 120 feet, passive perception 16. Its languages are deep speech, undercommon, and telepathy for 120 feet, and it's a CR of 3. Anything standing out there that you think is unusual, is wrong, or is pretty standard?
How did the stats stack up against the Gazer, Dave?
The dark vision's a little bit longer. It's more intelligent. It's got a little more charisma. Other than that, it's close to the same.
Right.
But it has languages, where the Gazer did not.
But they both can fly 30 feet, right?
Yes.
Just the Gazer is far more aggressive to get into battle, right? Whereas it feels like the Spectator's sitting back.
Yeah, what do you imagine deep speech sounds like? I imagine like a really low didgeridoo. Like we can't even fathom that it's a language.
Yeah, I was thinking like throat singing.
Yeah. But
it would be something like that. It also, in my head, is wet.
Right, yeah.
Low, slow, and moist.
Yes.
Yeah.
The name of my sex tape.
Yeah.
Well, you can't argue with that, can you? Okay,
Speaking of one-eyed monsters.
Actions. It does have a bite if should you choose to use it.
Please, why are we talking about Spectator again? Okay, thank you.
+1 to hit, reach 5 feet. One target, and on a hit, it's 2 damage or 1d6 -1. Okay, but let's get into the exciting part, which is the eye rays. The Spectator shoots up to 2 of the following magical eye rays at 1 or 2 creatures it can see within 90 feet of it. It can use each ray only once a turn. But it's not random. The Spectator can choose its rays.
Okay.
Right here in the text. So first on Confusion Ray, the target must succeed on a DC 13 Wisdom saving throw, or it can't take reactions until the end of its next turn. On its turn, the target can't move, and it uses the action to make a melee or ranged attack against a randomly determined creature within range. If the target can't attack, it does nothing on its turn. Paralyzing Ray, so it's DC 13 Constitution saving throw, or be paralyzed for 1 minute. The target can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on itself on a success. Number 3 is the Fear Ray. The target must succeed on a DC 13 Wisdom save or be frightened for 1 minute. The target can repeat the saving throw on the end of its turn, with disadvantage if the Spectator is visible to the target, ending the effect on itself with a success. And the final one, number 4, is the Wounding Ray. It's a DC 13 Constitution saving throw, or it'll take 16 standard damage or 3d10 necrotic damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. What do you guys think about the rays?
I like the Wounding Ray.
You like the Wounding Ray?
That's a neat take on it. It's different than your like frost or lightning, but it's still like it's a little different, right?
It is. It's interesting, but I still don't think I'd use it for that. I don't know if you guys want to touch on like unique ideas right now, or we should save it.
No, let's save it
for later then. But the Wounding Ray is good because it's different. But I like the fact that you can choose which ray you're going to use, because now you can actually be strategic with this Spectator. It's not just absolute chaos, which kind of falls in with the fact that it's lawful neutral as well.
What's interesting to me actually is the saves themselves.
Yeah.
Right. Dave, the Gazer had Dexterity, Constitution, and 2 Wisdom.
Correct.
You, Terry, with the Spectator have 2 Con and 2 Wisdom?
2 Con, 2 Wisdom, yeah.
So
Sorry, it's 2 Wisdom, a Dex, and a Strength.
Strength. So who's really, really good at fighting these guys?
Yeah, I mean,
which class is going to be inherently good at this? Con and Wisdom?
Do you know what? You could do a good job with your rogues with this. If you could position yourself correctly.
But they're pretty dexterous, right? So I'm thinking Wisdom is clerics.
Mm-hmm.
It's monks. Monks would be really good against this.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean paladins, of course, because all of their crazy save bullshit. Druids as well.
Yeah.
I feel like this thing is meant to wipe out barbarians.
Yeah,
and wizards and whatnot, right? Like your charisma casters, of which there are many in 5th edition, are kind of screwed against these guys.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. This is going to piss off your barbarian. Because this may be the first time, judging by the CR here, first time in the game where the barbarian is, and I've said it before, I know a lot of people don't agree, is not able to play the game on easy mode because they're now not able to do what they can just always do because they can. Yeah, here's an interesting one. Create food and water. The spectator magically creates enough food and water to sustain itself for 24 hours. Do either of you know why that is the case?
I figure that's from a mechanical standpoint, so you can just drop them in the middle of a dungeon and leave them, and you don't need to justify.
So it's just 2 lines on the page in, size 8 fonts, whatever.
By the way, they can do this. Yeah. Otherwise, you would have dead spectators all over the place. I would put these guys inside vaults.
Mm-hmm. This is what makes them a good guardian, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's my meta reasoning for that. Other than that, it would just be because they got summoned in with that ability.
It's because they're wonderful hosts.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
Well, I guess their job is literally just to be locked in vaults and tombs and stuff.
Yeah.
So they're going to need to be able to do that. Yeah. So the reactions, they have spell reflection. I love this. If the spectator makes a successful saving throw against a spell or a spell attack misses it, the spectator can choose another creature, including the spellcaster, it can see within 30 feet of it. The spell targets the chosen creature instead of the spectator. If the spell forced a save throw, the chosen creature makes its own save. If the spell was an attack, the attack roll is re-rolled against the chosen creature.
I like that.
I love it.
Yeah, that's fun. There's no central eye power for this guy?
No, there's no central eye power at all. No. I love him. I think you can be very tactical with them. I think you got to keep people thinking on their toes now. It's the side of it that we lose that I'm sad about in a way is the absolute chaos that comes with them. But on the flip side, it means you get to enjoy a more strategic game as a DM with a Beholder variant. So that's fun.
I'm sitting here looking at what you guys have talked about, whether it's the Dazing Ray, the Fear Ray, and the Telekinetic Ray for the Gazer. And the Spectator has, just had it a second ago, Confusion, Paralyzing, and Fear. This wipes out Barbarian Rages.
Yeah.
Barbarians are not only not playing on easy mode, they don't get their rages. They will waste them over and over. I'm going to rage, and then they're ineffective the next round. Or they're pushed further away, and they can't get to the enemy to attack, right?
Yeah.
And the wonderful thing about the Telekinetic Rays is that you don't have to hurt them. They may not take damage on that round, right? So you can really fuck with Barbarians specifically with this, which is a lot of fun.
And I know that we were talking before about how Beholder types are so intelligent that they can come up with different situations. And like statistically, they're not like academically intelligent. It's almost as though, I don't know, I kind of imagine it as though they can see so many, like the entire multiverse happening all at the same time.
It's Doctor Strange at the end of Infinity War, right?
It's not that they're academically intelligent. It's just almost like they can see every possibility. So I kind of see it as being different.
Okay. Let me talk about Beholders for a minute, all right?
Sure.
The Beholder proper is large, and it is lawful evil, which surprises me because with the chaos of the Rays, I always think of them as chaotic.
Yeah.
They've always been lawful in every edition. It surprises me every time I read it, though. Their AC is 18, and they've got 180 hit points standard, although obviously a lot more when you max it out. Their fly speed is only 20 feet. It's less than the little guys.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, they're significantly larger, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Their strength is average. Their dex is 14. Con is 18. Intelligence is 17. And wisdom is 15. And charisma is 17 as well. They've got saves against magic shit. And you're not going to hit them with constitution saves, right? They also have +8 to intelligence for their saving throw, +7 to wisdom, and +8 to charisma. So they're really laughing when it comes to a battle of slinging spells and spell-like effects. They get a +12 to perception. They're immune to being prone. Their dark vision is 120 feet, and their passive perception is 22. You're not going to sneak up on these guys.
Yeah.
They have deep speech and undercommon. And undercommon, I guess they're just given because they're usually found in the Underdark. There's a lot of them down there. But no telepathy for these guys. Now, here's where we get the anti-magic cone. The Beholder's central eye creates an area of anti-magic, as in the anti-magic field spell, in a 150-foot cone. So that's huge. At the start of each of its turns, the Beholder decides which way the cone is facing and whether the cone is active. Remember, it's at the beginning of the turn, so you have to commit before you even roll the rest of the eye stalks and whatnot. You have to roll this. Now, do you think for players this is a good idea to hide within it?
To hide within the anti-magic field?
Yeah.
Because then they can't be hit with the rays?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it all depends on what's going on the board. I think it could be a good idea at the right time, yeah.
It depends on the player. If your idea is you want to sit back and throw...
If you're a ranger, if you're shooting.
Yeah, sure.
This is going to interrupt your concentration spells too, so this is going to wipe out your Hunter's Mark or your Hex or anything. Dan, cut the last bit out. Here we go. So the other fun thing about the anti-magic field is that because it operates like the spell, here's what it says for magic items. The properties and powers of magic items are suppressed. For example, a +1 longsword in the sphere functions as a non-magical longsword.
Oh.
When you're in the cone, when it looks at you, all of your magic items go away.
So it loses its +1.
Yeah. A magic weapon's properties and powers are suppressed if it is used against a target or wielded by an attacker within the range. If a magic weapon or piece of magic ammunition fully leaves the area, the magic of the item ceases to be suppressed as soon as it exits.
Right.
So if you shoot an arrow out, even though it's a magical arrow, it will do nothing inside the anti-magic cone. But once it gets beyond it, the magic will kick in again. So it doesn't delete it. You're not dispelling the magic, you're just suppressing it. Spells and magical effects such as Dispel Magic doesn't have any effect in here. A creature or object summoned or created by magic temporarily winks out of existence in the sphere. Such a creature instantly reappears once a space the creature occupied is no longer within the sphere. So if you change that to cone for the beholder, as it looks around, and it would see something like your phantom steed, right? Your phantom steed will disappear. And then when it looks somewhere else, it'll pop back up again.
It just looks at you and you just fall off your horse.
Yeah, suddenly there's no horse there anymore.
Yeah.
So it doesn't answer, do potions work? I would say no. Potions are not alchemical, they're magical.
Yeah, I would say that's right. And I think as the DM, we have to be very specific on whether or not it is alchemical, whether this is just because of a mundane natural property that you've discovered, or whether it is arcane.
I look at it this way. I wouldn't let a potion of enlarge work, so why would I let a potion of regain hit points work?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Dave, how do you feel about that?
I mean, in theory, I like the sound of it, but I would never do that to my players. That's just asking for trouble. That's being aggressive.
I would let them know ahead of time that that's the case.
Sure, I guess, but I'm a fan of always giving them an out.
Really?
Yeah, but that out is retreat when it comes to a beholder.
You and Dan should play in the same game forever and never die.
That's just a freaking circle jerk. It's not what I'm in for.
I think
I need realism in my fantasy horror.
I do, though.
All right, so let's get into some of the crazy shit it can do. Starting off with are you ready for this? Bite.
Oh.
+5 to hit, 5 feet reach, and 1 target, 4d6 piercing damage.
I mean, why not if they're there?
Sure, 4d6 is nothing at CR 13, but I mean, hell, you're going to take a chunk out of someone, especially if it's a lowly wizard with not enough hit points sitting in your anti-magic field.
If I'm prone, can I move through its space because I crawl underneath it?
I would absolutely say yes.
Yeah.
I would also.
Sure.
Do you think where does a beholder keep its internal organs? I'm asking because I'm leading up to the anus, because we're crawling underneath. Internally, right, okay. But, I mean, if they got this big-ass brain, you know that optic nerve has got to be huge, right? You see the Death Tyrant skull. Where are the lungs and heart and everything? Or is it just an aberration, doesn't have that shit?
Does it breathe?
Does it? I'm asking. How do you guys... It does not say. It will tell you in other stat blocks, this creature does not require food, air, or water.
I would
doesn't say that
if
here.
it speaks, it breathes.
I would say so, which means where's its vocal cords?
Not necessarily. A Warforged speaks but doesn't breathe.
They do breathe in 5th edition. They're humanoids now. They're not constructs anymore.
I want to see an anatomical diagram of a beholder.
Well, like what's going on within the skull?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I like the idea of it having a very tiny brain on the inside in actuality, and everything else is just like a liver.
Jammed in around it.
It's got like 6 kidneys.
Yeah, because why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like organs it doesn't need anymore.
Yeah. It's just like just wrapped in intestine all the way around so it can never get a concussion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, let's get into the eye rays. It shoots 3 of the following magical eye rays at random. Re-roll duplicates specifically.
Right.
So you do not shoot the same one twice. It shoots. It chooses 1 to 3 targets it can see within 120 feet of it. It does say in Volos that you can choose to hit one target, and if you do something like put it to sleep and you take it out of combat, you can then choose to target other people. So you don't have to commit to the targets ahead of time, but you do commit to the eye rays.
Right. And you said it fires 3?
3.
3.
So now this is a DC 16 saving throw on each one of them. All right. So we can get rid of that right away. DC 16 for a CR 13 is, that's about right.
Yeah, tough, not impossible.
The first one is Charm, and it requires a Wisdom save, or be charmed by the Beholder for 1 hour, or until the Beholder harms the creature, which means minions can still hit it, and it won't break the charm. That's fucking deadly.
Yeah.
2 is Paralyzing. The target creature must succeed on a con save or be paralyzed for 1 minute. You can repeat the saving throw at the end of your turn. You notice how you couldn't repeat it for the charm?
Do you roll what the ray is going to be before or after you select the target?
I do it beforehand. I roll all 3 rays ahead of time.
Right.
Because the action is shoots 3 of the following magical eye rays at random, and then it says choosing 1 to 3 targets. And because in Volos it says you can change your target, you would know what the things are first.
Right.
So I'm going to load up the deadliest one first on who I want, and then hammer that person until they're ineffectual, and then move on to the next person.
Right.
Fear Ray is number 3, which means that you need a Wisdom save or you're frightened for a minute. They can repeat at the end of every turn. So that's pretty standard. Now, the Fear Ray for the Gazer is the same, except it just only lasts 1 turn. So it's a limited version, right?
Yeah, until the Gazer's next turn.
Yeah, so this one is for a minute. So there's a Slowing Ray. Target must succeed on a Dexterity save. On a failed save, the target's speed is halved for 1 minute. In addition, the creature can't take reactions, and it can take neither, and it can take either an action or a bonus action on its turn, not both. You can repeat the saving throw at the end of the turn. Next is the Enervation Ray. You got to make a con save, or you take 8d8 necrotic damage, or half as much on a success. Telekinesis is the same thing, except it's the same as the Gazer, moved up to 30 feet. This one is a strength save as well, but it is restrained by the Ray's telekinetic grip until the start of the Beholder's next turn, or until the Beholder is incapacitated.
So they can push you up against a wall and keep you there.
Yep. Or they can lift you up into the air and hold you. Mm-hmm. If the target is an object weighing 300 pounds or less that isn't being worn or carried, it is moved up to 30 feet in any direction. The Beholder can also exert fine control on objects with this ray, such as manipulating simple tool or opening a door or a container. So the same thing that the Gazer could do. Sleep Ray. So this is a Wisdom save. Or fall asleep and remain unconscious for 1 minute. The target awakens if it takes damage or another creature takes an action to wake it. This ray has no effect on constructs or undead. So that one is not a repeat saving throw. They will put you to sleep. The sleep spell is pretty fucking useless in 5th edition. It should be this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
This is where it starts to get a little fucky. Petrification Ray. The targeted creature must make a DC 16 dexterity saving throw. On its failed save, the creature begins to turn to stone and is restrained. All that means is you don't move. It must repeat the saving throw at the end of its next turn, and on a success, the effect ends. But on a failure, the creature is petrified until freed by the Greater Restoration spell or other magic. So you get turned to stone. Disintegration Ray is number 9. The target is a creature. It must succeed on its dex save or take 10d8 force damage If this damage reduces the creature to 0 hit points, its body becomes a pile of fine gray dust. If the target is a large or smaller non-magical object or creation of magical force, it is disintegrated without a saving throw. If the target is a huge or larger object or creation of magical force, the ray disintegrates a 10-foot cube of it.
The first character I ever played in 5th edition had Disintegrate cast on him, and he just went poof.
Did he?
Yeah, very first one. My Dragonborn Paladin. His name was Rogrin.
Yeah.
And we entered a Mind Flayer
Like
area.
Thanos style?
No, I was a red Dragonborn, so I lit his books on fire, and he's all like, fuck you, and I just went poof, gone.
Yikes.
Yeah, no, Disintegrate, I love it. That's great.
Yes.
And what was it, 8D or 10D8?
Yeah, 10d8.
Like, that's gonna
That's
kill
gonna hurt.
just about everything.
At CR13, yeah, your fighters, your front row, your martial guys are gonna take a couple of those hits before they go, but your sorcerer's in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that there's 3 and you can't repeat, like you re-roll duplicates, you're getting hit with something hard on every round. Somebody's getting hit with something.
This is one of the handful of times that I wish that they had a different CR for the different number of people in the party.
Yeah.
Because if there are 3 people in the party, everyone's going to get something targeted at them every time. But if there's 5, you're 60% of the time.
This is the conversation you have with your party where you go, look, we're at a level where we are able to beat this thing, but chances are one of us is not coming out.
Yeah. The last one, of course, is the Death Ray. And this one is simply a dex save or 10d10 necrotic damage. The target dies if you are reduced to 0 hit points. With the Disintegration Ray and the Death Ray, there is no death save. If you get to 0, you're done.
Yeah.
And with the Disintegration Ray, a lot of the times you need a piece of the body part to bring them back to life. So there's not even a resurrection that can be had.
Yeah. Now, like looking at these rays here, the problem is it's very, very hard to work together because everybody's dealing with different bullshit. You got the wizard over there getting disintegrated at the same time as the cleric's being petrified. The barbarians receiving a telekinetic ray, so they can't get involved. Everybody's trying to use their turn to react to some other bullshit, so it stops you from working together.
And it gets worse because the Beholder has 3 legendary actions. Now it has to use an eye ray. So it just uses one at random. You roll a d10. You have to use it at the end of someone else's turn. You can only use one at a time. So if there's only 2 people in the party, for example, I mean, you're fucked.
Yeah.
But if there's only 2 people in the party, only 2 of these legendary reactions can be used. You don't get all 3 because there's only 2 people that are done. And it is specifically at the end of another creature's turn. You do not get to stack one on the end of the Beholder's turn.
Yeah.
Okay, I have made that mistake. I have whumped a party something fierce with that. But that means that you're getting potentially 6 of these off. Every round. 6 rays.
I mean, me just thinking tactically, I would just burn all 3 of those legendary actions from the first 3, like at the top of the round, first 3 players, pop, 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 give that. Now you got to,
yeah,
now
why not?
your entire round is fucked because you're reacting to this extra bullshit.
Yeah, why not? I would be targeting the people, because you can choose a target the people that have not gone yet in initiative.
Yeah.
Right? Really fuck their world up.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the craziness that comes with Beholders. How do you guys feel now about these 3 creatures? Before we jump to a break, how do we feel? Are Beholders like the Beholder subtype? Is this something that is punching above its weight class? Is it flavorful enough that it should be in most campaigns? How do we feel in general about them? Let's roll.
Sure. 15 for me.
I'm going last with a 13. Dave, you got a 17.
Yeah, 17. Yeah. The thing I liked about all 3 of these is that they can all be used very differently, right? It's very eclectic. So, I mean, yeah, how could you not want to use these things, right? Like you've got a big bad boss for a, tier 3 if you got a couple of them, right?
Well, one of these guys is a tier 3 boss, right?
Right. So, I mean, and then the Spectator, you've got your Guardian that's going to reveal secrets. You've got these annoying little gazers that are just running around. Plus, there's other kinds of Beholders you can throw in as well. You could just do a, Beholder campaign, right?
Yeah.
There's enough options there.
Yeah, I think I like them all for different reasons as well. I like, just very quickly for the Gazer, I like them for more creativity during the exploration part of your game. You're going around, you're in your dungeon, funny things are happening.
It's the role play pillar.
But I like the Spectator as, in an encounter with that, the Spectator is not the real enemy. I would have the Spectator as the real thing that you're trying to deal with is the fact of the puzzle would be, I imagine like the Cave of Wonders from Aladdin. Everything's falling down. You've got to get everybody out of there within 5 rounds, but this dickhead's firing off rays all the time and you can't move. This guy's flying over here. So it's not that you're trying to kill the Spectator. He's just stopping you from achieving what you're trying to achieve.
I also really like that for the idea that he's the one that asks the riddle.
Yeah.
Right? Or spectators are perfect for saying, well, if you answer my riddle, then you have free passage. And there are 3 giant statues in the next room that are going to come to life if you get it wrong.
Yeah.
Right? And so you never fight the spectator. Right? I like that. He's defensive only.
Yes. But what I love about the Beholder is that is the one that you want to be in the game. And full power, Beholder proper, I want the satisfaction of knowing I can say to my friends, I fought a Beholder of full power, Beholder proper, and I beat it, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to do that again. That's like the ultimate trophy. That, in a way, is better than beating the Ancient Red for me.
So, I mean...
Achievement unlocked.
Yeah.
I was going to get into this in the next Beholder episode, but one of the things that they talk about is the trophies that they keep. And one of the things that they keep is parts of other Beholders.
Yeah.
So I can picture them holding on to, like, eye stalks stapled to the wall or
to themselves, like just make it look like they've got more than they actually do.
But also, like, petrified sections of them, right? They disintegrate a portion of them, petrify the rest, and then put a third of a Beholder statue in the corner of their lair. Like, you can get really weird and fucky with Beholders. I don't know, man. I love absolutely every one of these.
That's really interesting, because if they've got one that's petrified, if you come in and you see it and you're, in a confrontation with the other one, you just greater restoration that Beholder, and now they're fighting each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and now it's a bigger threat than you are.
Yeah, exactly. So that's interesting. You can use that as the smart way to get through an encounter, right?
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's jump to a quick shout out, and then I want to go over some of the alternative variants to what these eye rays can do. And then I want to talk about our own unique personal encounter that we would do for each one that we've come up with.
Sure.
Hey guys, it's Adam again. I wanted to kind of drop a little note in your ear. Most of you will already know this, but for those of you who don't, that are interested in DMing or just making your new original content, maybe you've got a great homebrew idea, something that you implement in your games all the time, and you just want to see how other people are doing it, head over to DM's Guild. DM's Guild is an online repository, not suppository, calm down Terry, a repository of a bunch of Dungeons & Dragons material that other people, third parties, are publishing. Wizards supports it. It's not official, but some of it is very, very, very good. There are some official materials that are available on it, and there are things that they've kind of adopted as semi-official as well. And there are some really cool things out there that people are putting up, a lot of different smaller modules and campaigns. If you ever sat there and thought to yourself, hey, how come we never got this kind of campaign? I bet there's something like that on DM's Guild. A lot of it you got to pay for, but it's cheap, and you get the full PDF. And there's also a lot of free information on there as well. A lot of it for a limited time. They cycle through free things all the time. Go check it out. It's a great resource beyond just the standard Unearthed Arcana. So, go look into it, have fun, and use your common sense, because all of it needs to be taken with a grain of salt. It is homebrew and not play tested, but it's a great opportunity for you to find inspiration. Again, that's www.dmsguild.com. Now, let's get back to the regular conversation. All right, so let's go through this really quickly. Remember, DC 16 saves on these, right? Terry, and I can see that you've got the Beholder open, so I'm going to ask you which number it is on the list as I go through these, because they're in alphabetical order here. So for the Anti-Magic Cone, before we do that, if you don't like it, you can do Mirage Arcane, which is the ability to turn the entire terrain into some hallucinatory, crazy bullshit. Or power word stun.
Ooh.
Affecting only the weakest non-stun target in the cone each round.
What do they mean by weakest? Lowest hit points?
I would say, lowest hit points. So, power word stun. That's instead of anti-magic. How do you feel about that? Or the hallucinatory terrain. Do you guys like those?
I like the hallucinatory terrain. I probably wouldn't use power word stun.
I think the other way around. I would use power word stun and not the terrain. I don't like keeping track of that kind of thing. But to take somebody and stun them right away, that's...
Dave likes his D&D in open meadows at 17 degrees and at 2 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon.
A well-swept stone floor.
Yeah, exactly. Great.
Exactly.
Okay, so for the Charm Ray, which number is this?
Charm Ray is number 1. That was easy.
Banishment for 1 minute. So instead of charming them, you just kick them to another realm for 1 minute, and then they come back. Or Confusion for 1 minute.
You probably guessed this already from me. I'd use Confusion.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd kick somebody away. That's even better.
Oh, that's an
For a full minute too. That is a great way. If you can hit this one, if you can roll it over and over again, and you have a decent chance of doing that.
Yeah.
You could knock the whole party out until there's one guy left and fuck them up.
This is why it's rough. Because 5 minutes ago I was like, my ambition would be to fight this. I love this, love that. You've been waiting all week for this. Then you get fucked off for an hour real time. Be like, great.
Yeah.
So far though, I've now stunned that guy and banished that guy.
Yeah.
These can be way deadlier, right? I'm ramping up the CR with this. Mm-hmm. Instead of Death Ray, there's Circle of Death.
So number 10.
Yeah, which is a 10-foot radius sphere that is 4d6 necrotic damage to all creatures in the area.
It's a little light.
But it's a 10-foot radius, so it's a 20-foot sphere. You can hit the whole party for 4d6.
Yeah, it still seems a little light at CR 13.
Or Feeble Mind. Feeble Mind is nasty. That's the one that drops you down to be an idiot.
I'd probably use Feeble Mind, because I think I agree with Dave. You'd be like, well, it's shit that they hit everybody, but also it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'd probably just stick with the original Death Ray. Because, 10d10?
Yeah.
It doesn't do more damage than that.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with Death Ray. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, for the Disintegration Ray, which one is this?
9.
Chain Lightning, where the primary target takes 68 lightning damage, and 2 secondary targets within 30 feet of the primary one takes 3d8 lightning damage each.
I love Chain Lightning, but the idea of Disintegration Ray is more terrifying.
Yeah, because you don't have the resurrection.
Yeah.
The other option is Eye Bite, which is 1 minute of that sickened effect that comes with Eye Bite.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Disintegration Ray is just too attractive. It
is. Maybe I would hit with the Chain Lightning a couple of times and weaken them, and then hit them with the...
Well, you would replace that eye stalk with this one.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, the next one is Enervation Ray. Where...
Ooh, that's number 5.
Yeah, and this one just does a bunch of damage, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Instead, you can create undead. And it's usable regardless of the time of day. So if you kill someone with the Death Ray, you can then bring them back as a zombie the next round. Or Polymorph for 1 minute. Isn't that fun?
I like the Polymorph.
The Polymorph is, and you're a frog, and you're a snail, and you're Dan.
No, I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Oh my god, I would turn my players into the actual versions of themselves in the game.
That's not fair to some of your players.
I polymorphed you into commoner.
You have been polymorphed into nerd. How do we like those? Create undead?
Create undead's fun.
You said that, and Terry and I both went, oh?
Yeah.
And our heads came up, and we said, oh, yeah.
Because it's interesting, right? Polymorph can be very interesting, but it's also a little bit predictable about what you're most likely going to do tactically. Create undead.
I need to have some corpses around before this fight starts. So that if I roll this before I drop a player, I can raise a zombie.
Yeah.
Right. That's the only caveat there.
You should be able to have some as a beholder.
And,
I think so.
And I agree with having corpses all over dungeons, because I don't know why our parties are always the first people to get there. None of the traps have ever been set off. So
that's true. Yeah. The next one is the Fear Ray. Instead, they can use gaseous form on themselves or another willing creature where they can just turn to mist.
Okay, this is number 3.
This is that really annoying vampire bullshit that they can do. Or they get Moonbeam. And do you guys remember? Moonbeam is like legit weirdly powerful. It does a bunch of damage and it fucks with lycanthropes.
I would only use gaseous form if it needs to get away.
Well, you can't control it. What that does is it means that you can't take damage for a round, right?
Sure, but I would still I would still plug this one into one that isn't necessarily supposed to be killed. Because, sometimes you get your guys to go up against not just something they're supposed to murder, but something that they're supposed to maybe talk their way through. Yeah. Or, this would be a piece that I would use as a DM to
I've given up on putting NPCs in there that they're just supposed to talk to.
Oh, yeah, they just kill, right?
Yeah, there's always a backup plan.
They come up with that one person that they like and that they would be absolutely terrified or destroyed inside if something bad happened to them, and then they just murder the rest.
Right.
I really like gaseous form because they can turn their minions into gas, and then they can sit there and the rest of the battlefield can have this stinking, gross cloud. And as your guys are in there breathing, and it's hard to breathe, and they're breathing this really nasty thing, and then all of a sudden, a kobold materializes in their lungs.
That is so you as well.
Yay! Make a con save, bitch. DC 50. Paralyzing Ray.
Number 2.
Modify memory or silence for 1 minute.
Oh,
silence is fucky.
Silence. I like my silence. I like my silence. Not me, myself. I can't shut up. But
we know, Terry.
that's why I'm on a podcast.
But modify memory, Dave, you like that one?
Yeah, it just allows you to do a couple more things.
Just to confuse them even more within you're adding a role play level to this combat as well, which is
exactly fun. Yeah.
Do we like it better though than paralyzing?
I think it could be. You got to choose your party with this.
Yeah.
Because some people are going to be okay with Paralyzing Ray, but a lot of people they're not. If they want to get involved, at least modify memory, they're still involved.
Yeah, that's fair. Petrification Ray.
Number 8.
Auto's Irresistible Dance for 1 minute.
Okay.
Or Wall of Ice in one 10-foot square panel for 1 minute.
Yeah, Wall of Ice. Fuck with the terrain.
Oh, make them dance.
Put on the back foot.
Make them dance.
Nah, Wall of Ice for me.
Sleep Ray. Which number is that?
Sleep Ray was number 7.
Blindness, Deafness, or Misty Step for themselves or a willing creature.
Misty Step.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I really like the Sleep Ray mechanic, though, for these guys, because it's shitty.
Misty Step, because you will have already had to decide which way you're facing the beholder. So the idea of he now faces the other way, opposite you, and everyone's like, why? It's because you have to prep for that Misty Step later on.
Yeah, okay. Slowing Ray would be Bestow Curse for 1 minute, or Sleet Storm for one 10-foot cube.
I like Bestow Curse.
Yeah, it's good. It's simple. I like it.
And for 1 minute, too, that's going to last all the combat, right? Every time that I've been saying 1 minute, I'm like, that's the rest of this battle.
Yeah, essentially.
Unless you fucking retreat. And the last one is Telekinesis Ray. Gives you Gesh, or for 1 hour, or Wall of Force for 1 minute and another 10-foot square panel.
Not today.
Gesh is you place a magical command on a creature that you can see within range, forcing it to carry out some service or refrain from some action or course of activity as you decide. So you could say, don't attack me. If the creature can understand you, it must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or become charmed by you for the duration. In this case, for 1 minute. While the creature is charmed by you, it takes 5d10 psychic damage each time it acts in a manner directly counter to your instructions, but no more than once each day. A creature that can't understand you is unaffected by the spell. You're speaking Undercommon and Deep Speech. How many of your guys speak it?
Doesn't have telepathy.
No, it doesn't. So, I mean, you're hitting your drow with this, and I don't think I would use this. Not unless I'm going to give him common.
That's an interesting thing to remember, because I would have forgotten that prepping for this game.
And you can't use Gesh to make someone suicidal or do anything to harm themselves, right? So,
That's funny. Yeah, you can't even talk to this fucking thing.
yeah. Well, I really like Beholders. I wish you could communicate with them. I wish it was just that little bit easier. I like the idea now that I say that out loud of having there be a little advisor that translates.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of like a C-3PO for Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah.
So, how do you feel about these alternative rays?
Some of them are very good. Some of them I wouldn't bother with. But it depends on the situation, right? It depends on party politics and who you have, really.
But
because
that's what's great about them, though, is you can kind of cherry pick it to fit whatever you're doing, right?
Exactly. Because even though you're trying to make it challenging, you're also trying to make it fun for them. Like, what are they going to enjoy having to deal with? You know, some people that don't want petrification and paralyzation? Paralysis.
There it is, yeah. Yeah, I also really like the idea of you creating a hive and then just rolling a D6, but you split it up so it's a D3 to find out which one of the regular ones which one for the, let's say, paralysis, the paralyzing ray, which one am I doing for number 2? Is it going to be this one, or this one? Right? And you, I don't know, roll a D10 at the beginning to see how many you're replacing, and you roll through to see which ones you're doing, and you do it for 10 different beholders.
Yeah.
Each one is going to be radically different. And depending on what you get, you can color them and flavor them differently and give them different colored eyes and longer eye stalks and that kind of crazy shit.
Yeah, I think you can, because of the colors of the eyes and stuff, you can lay out clues throughout the layer as well about what each eye stalk may do. Yeah.
So the other thing that I wanted to get into, now that we've gone through kind of like what they are from a basic standpoint, before we get into the our uses, our own unique encounters, I want to go through what Volos has to say about each one of the eye rays, because it's more than just the attack. For the charm ray, it's common for beholder to charm a hostile monster, lure the creature to the beholder's lair, and confine it there so it can't escape under its own power. So it's doing this on purpose. This is outside of combat. I feel like it can use these things specifically. Right? But in combat, just to make it more random and fair, you have to roll randomly, like 3d10, right? To figure it out.
Yeah.
But beholders luring people in using a charm ray, that's pretty fun. I didn't expect to see that level of intelligence and scheming, despite all the stuff I said at the beginning with the, like, oh, they're always plotting and they're paranoid and everything. The idea that they're smart enough to really lure people into their own lair is really interesting and different, especially when you think about the idea that these guys often live in sewers and caverns and stuff. So an eye stalk can peek out around the corner and hit someone.
Yeah, I like it.
Although the use of the charm effect lasts only an hour, repeated uses over time against the same target tend to wear down a creature's will, creating a docile servant. So there's no mechanic for that, but you can eventually brainwash the mayor with the beholder. For the paralyzing ray, outside of combat, it's most often used to restrain a fleeing minion that doesn't want to be destroyed outright. Which I do like the idea that these guys are just crazy, paranoid against their own minions, and they will just kill you. You ever see those movies or the TV shows where you're like, why would you ever work for that psychopath?
Yeah.
I feel like that's the case with the beholder. Like, why would you ever do that? Yeah. Oh, it's because you've been brainwashed or you've been subjugated somehow, but you're still waiting for your time to get out, because he does just get angry and kill minion number 46 at a whim, right? So for Fear Ray, they use the Fear Ray to psychologically torture and interrogate prisoners until the creature loses their will to resist.
Pretty dark, isn't it?
That's the Terry Ray so far. The Slowing Ray, they might use its Slowing Ray on an uncooperative creature, such as or as a demonstration of sorts, threatening to follow it up with a more severe consequence. So that's, I don't know, pretty standard. It's not much you can do with slowing.
It's like an escalation technique.
Yeah. Death Ray and Enervation Ray are really the same because they just do a shit ton of damage.
Yeah.
They can fine-tune its Death Ray or Enervation Ray so that it can zap the smallest of targets, and deal only a small amount of damage. For example, to guard against magical spying, a beholder might use either ray to eliminate all common vermin, like bats, rats, spiders, and so on, from its lair. There's so much to do with the telekinetic ray. I mean, setting up traps, and my favorite thing to do is pick up a boulder and move it over top of your anti-magic field, and then drop it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
It can also forcibly transport a creature that is immune to the charm effects, so it can still use the telekinetic ray to kidnap people. Sleep ray is pretty straightforward, but it says that it wants to specifically target the leader, which makes me think that I'm going to use this guy to hit battle masters. Right? The people that can control the terrain. Wizards are usually bards as well. These guys are usually the face of the party. Whoever's going to walk in first.
Yeah.
I don't think they're too worried about the monk or the rogue right away. Especially because these guys can hover. Right? And that's another thing about the lair. I'm always going to put these guys 60 feet up in the middle of a giant room.
I like that. You just got me thinking there. Put the guy to sleep who's the guy where he's like, okay, let me do the talking.
Yeah.
Yeah. He walk in, poof, enough from that guy.
Yeah.
Now everybody else has got to go, but that wasn't the plan.
Yeah. For the petrification ray, the most mundane function of this is a means of decorating a beholder's lair with statues. It says it right in here. Beyond that, the ray has a multitude of uses. An unruly minion could be turned to stone, eliminating the creature as a threat, and creating a permanent reminder of the price of disobeying the beholder. A beholder might use loosely scattered petrified creatures to create obstacles in an open chamber, or pack them tightly in a corridor to seal off an area, or use them as falling hazards. Now he's not dropping boulders, he's dropping horses.
Sure.
I like it.
And then Disintegration Ray. This is used for tunneling.
Okay.
Boring holes. And like we're going to talk about in the next episode, they do think vertically.
Yeah.
So I like the idea that they're going to use their Disintegration Ray to really move around and create exactly the layer that they want.
Hey, if you got a 3D chessboard, go nuts.
Also, I'm going to wipe out pillars and bring a cave. I'm going to cave in a roof.
Yeah.
Smart.
So, unique set piece encounters or ideas. Do you guys want to roll for this one?
Sure.
Okay, let's grab our dice.
Sure.
And let's go through our own unique encounters for ours. I got a 10.
18.
Man, we're rolling high today.
17?
17
Yeah,
for
17
Dave.
today. All right, Terry, you're up. What do you got?
Dave, you said it earlier, and I didn't want to talk about it, and I'm glad we moved on. Was the encounter is not what you expected it to be. Okay, you talk to the mayor or whatever, they say, go and do this, you'll be in and out, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, don't worry about this simple dungeon, until you get there, and it's two beholders, because they hate each other. Maybe one's dreamed the other one into existence or whatever, and the puzzle suddenly becomes there's two beholders fighting, and you can't do what you need to do because they're causing absolute chaos. They're like, and there may be like lulls in the battle. They come across each other, boom, 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 rays are going off, and then the one will retreat or they'll move away. They'll work on their strategy. So this simple thing that you're trying to achieve has been made very difficult because there's two beholders that are not interested in you but are interested in killing each other, and it can still be done as a low level thing because they're not actively trying to kill you. You just have to avoid them. You know, you just have to avoid them while they're killing each other.
I like the idea of there being one of however many eye-rays they're using goes wild and may hit one of the party members.
Yes.
So you as a DM are rolling to see which party member is being hit. Mm-hmm. So you make your own little D4, D5 table, whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. And then you roll a die for it. You're like, and this one just, the sleep ray goes wild and nearly hits the wizard. Roll your save, right? So I think that could be a lot of fun, especially when these two are battling to the death.
Yeah, and that's really what I'm trying to bring into my games as well, because it's not always about your party, and that comes for anything like random encounters. You may not necessarily come across an ogre who, for whatever reason, wants to kill you. You may come across one who's in the middle of trying to kill something else, who's in there, or somebody else's battle, or something which is hunting something else. And I'm trying to put much more of that in my games now.
No, I like that. That's cool.
There's other people in the world. It's not all about you.
I like the idea of having just a beholder kin campaign. That is your mission. Maybe you work for a guy that wants one of each skull and he can use it to do whatever he wants to do or whatever. But there's enough variety here that you could have a big bad at every tier.
Yeah.
And stuff in the middle. I mean, you can dumb these down a little bit. You can strengthen others a little bit. You can just kind of make them have to crawl through and maybe collect each and every one. The whole time, these little gazers are just like floating around, being annoying and mocking them. And they're the hardest one to get, right? Because they're aggressive. They're flying all over. They're up. They're gone. You just can't hit them.
Yeah.
You know, they're the weakest butt. You know, and
they're the weakest butt.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
you could work for different beholders at the same time. I wouldn't advise it.
Well, no, I wouldn't either. But each one has its own distinct flavor that you can kind of get different things while keeping the same theme.
Yeah.
And the one thing I like when I make campaigns is grab a theme for monsters and stick with it. I know, Adam, you and I did one in Aberrations where it was all giants. And it was just changing the kind of giant over and over again.
I like that as well.
And I think you could really do this with the Beholder, and that's what I appreciate about them.
I like it, Dave.
All right, hold on. I got to look up. There was something that I ran across months ago that just occurred to me now.
That's a fancy monster manual, isn't it?
It is. It's all shiny because it came in...
They know how to fucking get nerds, man, these people.
Well, it came in that really special box set.
Look, they know how to get us. They make it a little bit shiny. They whack the word limited edition on it, even though there's 50,000 and everybody buys it. Do you like a big eye on your beholders, Dave, or a little eye?
Oh, big. It's got to be intimidating. It's got to be a vertical slit eye kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or maybe have like a strange
like a
glow
reptilian type eye?
Maybe. Depends on the kind of beholder. Maybe one with like the small, tiny little dot pupil, but all of these colors going on around it. Like, you could... This is where you're not just going to say, oh, and the beholder has 4 eyes, and its skin is gray, and... No, you can, like, get into some detail here.
Yeah.
And then... You know, they're chasing after a beholder, and they come across a bunch of other beholders, but this one's got that little blue speck in its iris.
Yeah.
You know, like it's got to be big.
Are beholders, because they dream each other into reality, are they subject to sex? Is there male and female beholders?
I don't think so. I think they're gender. Honestly, anything that comes from the far realms, in my opinion, with the exception of maybe mind flayers, are gender neutral.
Yeah.
Because they've got 7 genders. Like, it doesn't fucking matter.
Right.
Right? Like, or not even 7 genders, 7 physical sexes.
Because they're working with completely different logic to us.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So check this out. Considering radically different logic, I ran across this in the Monster Manual months ago. Under fungi. In the Underdark, there are gas spores. The first gas spores are thought to have been spawned from dead beholders whose moldering corpses fed a parasitic fungus with aberrant magic. Having long since adapted into a unique plant creature, a gas spore grows quickly and purposefully out of any corpse, creating a malevolent-looking mockery of the most feared denizen of the Underdark, the beholder. Which means these things sit there and float, and they look like beholders, but they're just fungus. They're round, they're spherical, they hover in the air, and they've got a giant eye in the middle of them.
Oh, so this is how you raise the party's anxiety.
Yes.
Yeah, they got to walk through a cavern full of these things looking at them.
A gas spore is a spherical, balloon-like fungus that resembles a beholder from a distance, although its true nature becomes increasingly obvious as one approaches it. The monster possesses a blind central eye and rhizome growths sprouting from its upper surface, which are essentially mushroom-looking things that look like eye stalks.
Right.
They have death burst. Its hollow shell is filled with a lighter-than-air gas that enables it to float, as a beholder does. Piercing the shell with even the weakest attack causes the creature to burst open, releasing a cloud of deadly spores. A creature that inhales the spores becomes host to them, and is often dead within a day. Its corpse then becomes the spawning ground from which new gas spores arise.
Well, that's terrifying.
A gas spore that sprouts from beholder's corpse sometimes carries within its memories of the deceased parent. When the gas spore explodes, its deadly spores cast those memories adrift, and any creature that inhales the spores and survives inherits one or more of the beholder's fragmented memories. and might gain useful information about the beholder's former lair and other nearby places and creatures of interest. Here's the mechanics. This thing is a CR half. It's got 1 hit point, and AC of 5. If you bump it, this thing is going to blow up. The gas spore explodes when it drops to 0 hit points. Each creature within 20 feet of it must succeed on a DC 15 con save, CR half. DC 15. Or take 3d6 poison damage and become infected with a disease on a failed save. Creature immune to the poison condition are immune to this disease. Spores invade an infected creature system, killing the creature in a number of hours equal to 1d12 plus the creature's constitution score, unless the disease is removed. In half that time, the creature becomes poisoned for the rest of the duration. After the creature dies, it sprouts 2d4 tiny gas spores that grow to full size in 7 days.
I might backhand gift the player with something here where they're going to suffer for a little bit, but maybe they come out and they can speak deep speech or something.
I'm also going to murder some NPCs with this.
Yeah.
Especially mounts.
Yeah.
The other cool thing about this is that you need, in order to determine that it is a gas spore, you have to hit it with a DC 15 nature check. Which you never get. Nothing calls for nature checks. It has a touch attack of +0 to hit. It does 1 poison damage, and the creature must succeed on a con save or become infected with the disease described in the death burst. So if you just fill a cavern with these things, making dex checks to get through it, and then you throw about 3 gazers into the middle of it.
Stop firing off their rays.
And you think about this with the Telekinetic Ray, you're just popping these things left, right, and center. Oh, God, yeah. That would be so terrifying.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of fun for me. I want to put these things in every beholder lair.
And I'm thinking vertically as well, so I'd have them kind of floated around, like these poisonous balloons that they have to navigate their way through.
Yeah, do you remember the scene in The Wizard of Oz where they're walking through the field of poppies and it puts them all to sleep and shit? Yeah. I'm just thinking about a field of these things.
Yeah.
I think that's a load of fun. It's so creepy, it's so weird. I wish it was in the beholder section, because I don't think a lot of people, but I think everybody just scrolls right by or flips past the fungus section of the monster manual.
Yeah, I've never looked in the fungus section.
No, but and that's only one of them. There are a couple other really cool things in there.
Oh, this could be so good because you know that maybe someone's going to throw a fireball in there to try and get rid of them all, or a lightning bolt or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of a sudden your sleet storm is the worst idea ever.
Can you imagine?
Yes, I can, and I absolutely love it.
Are you a fan of NPCs giving out bad ideas to PCs?
Well,
yes.
Wouldn't Gust just kind of get rid of it altogether because it's lighter than air?
Until it hits something.
No. He's saying get rid of the cloud.
Yeah. Once it bursts, you gust, and it's up, and then it doesn't come down again.
In theory, if you have it. I like the idea of putting these things in narrow, small tunnels you have to crawl through.
Sure, but even then, like, you've got a little time before. It's neat, don't get me wrong, but I think you could probably get around this.
You should be able to get around anything in D&D. Like, as a DM, I'm not giving you an automatic death, right?
No, for sure, but I just want to make sure that my guys actually can be equipped to deal with this. Although this can be detrimental, it's manageable if they're smart.
Yeah, also, honestly, if they hold their breath, I'm cool with that too. They can just walk through the cloud holding their breath.
Oh, no, they gotta have their eyes closed too. Spores getting in your eyes and stuff? Oh, no way.
Sure, okay, but then you're doing dex saves with disadvantage because you're blind and, or go the other way. This just is a way to block them moving through. You can see the objective on the far side of this cavern, but you can't get there.
Yeah.
And I think that's infuriating, except for the one guy that just misty steps, bloop, and he's over there. And everybody else is like, but fuck, come on.
Yeah.
I want to come too. The other thing that I wanted to touch on really briefly, are you guys familiar with the reduced threat monsters?
No.
Okay, Tales of the Yawning Portal introduced these, and they're kind of neat. The Beholder's the one that everybody talks about, but there are a number of them, including wyverns and other things as well. And this is a template that you put on top of a creature. And I'm just going to bring it up in the Beholder episode. We're never going to talk about it again because it is a mechanic that everyone should know about. A reduced threat monster has half the hit points of the base creature, and all of its attack rolls, ability checks, saving throws, and saving throw DCs are reduced by 2. If the base creature is bigger than large, its size becomes large, and the damage of its weapons is reduced accordingly if applicable. A reduced threat creature warrants half the experience base that the base creature gets for defeating it. So that's it. You are essentially having it and making it less effective.
Yeah.
That way you will actually be able to defeat these. The only reason I bring this up is because I'm thinking about the Beholder Hive with all of the Beholders in it. Each one is supposed to be smaller than the original one, but then they don't give you stats for them.
It's a way of scaling it, right? Scaling it down,
I guess I already scale it on my own normally.
I always scale up, though. I like having a mechanic to scale down.
I do too, but it's easy to apply it the other way. And instead of giving it more, I give it less.
This is an easy version of not necessarily being specifically beholders here, but to use younger variations of other creatures as well. Everything's always seems to be an adult, you know?
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I really liked about, I think it was Ghost of Saltmarsh gave us the juvenile Kraken.
Yeah.
Which was really nice to see. Now we've got like 9 different kinds of Krakens, but it was really cool to see like a baby Kraken.
Yeah.
And why don't we have baby dragon turtles? Yeah, right.
Baby hellhounds.
I like it.
Right?
Yeah.
That's how they get you.
Yeah.
So would you use a reduced threat beholder for a hive, or are you just going full strength?
No, I'm going to do the same thing I always do. I'm going to throw the full thing at them. If they can't handle it, and it's very apparent within the first couple of rounds, I'll dumb it down a little. And if it's not hard enough, I will strengthen it.
You're one of these DMs that is more about the experience of the battle than the storyline involved.
Yeah, rules are meant to be broken.
Or
do your players know that about you as you're DMing? So they know. Is there a point where they're going, okay, we've beaten it, but we haven't?
Okay, yes, probably.
Yeah.
They'll know that, this is not going to be that big of a deal. It's just a cave full of orcs. But if you run in ahead of everybody else, Calvin, and just get surrounded by orcs as the rogue, Calvin, when you're 60 feet in front of everybody else, Calvin, and these 12 orcs get to hit you, Calvin, you're going to die. Right? Like, there's no coming back from that. You have made a poor choice. It's going to happen. No amount of me dumbing that down is going to save that.
Yeah, Calvin, with your made-up name. Your name's Kevin, all right?
His made-up name is Guppy.
Calvin, you're lovely.
So my question then is, when you accidentally kill a character, and I mean like accidentally, the rolls you crit and then rolled max damage, and you drop someone, are you bending over backwards to help them out?
No, I one time accidentally rolled 3 20s in a row, and in 3.5, that's an auto kill. So, sorry, you're dead. The dice said it.
That's it, and that's the game.
I cannot fix that.
Me and Dan will have this argument forever about how he would try and help them, and I would argue, like, well, what the fuck are we doing then?
I'll try. I mean, in 3.5, you roll it, and if you hit their AC, if you critical, you roll again to see if you confirm, right? So you got to hit above their AC. If you critical again, though, you get the extra one. So there's always that pause. It's like, well, you know that it's up to this one roll, and it's low chance, but it could. And when it does, I'm not going to save you. Sorry.
Yeah.
See, I'm like that in every battle, though. I balance my combat ahead of time, and I come in, and it's not about the numbers. I don't fudge the numbers. I will fudge the tactics.
Yeah.
Right? So that I know that one person is hurting, and I will wait for someone to do some flashy maneuver on the other side of the battlefield to catch everyone else's attention. And now all the enemies will focus their attention on someone else so that one player can recover. But if I end up knocking them down, and it's not about the dice, it's just about the AC and the hit points and the damage I'm doing, right? I will not adjust that on the fly. Then this makes it so that I'm paying closer attention, I think, than the average DM,
right,
to what the players are capable of doing in between sessions, where I sit down and go, oh, this is really good encounter for, fuck me, Terry's used a second wind by now. I'll scale this down a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm doing that shit at home ahead of time. And then that means that sometimes it's a cakewalk when it shouldn't be, and sometimes it's way deadlier than it should be. But that's the randomness of life, and I'm comfortable with that. I do not adjust on the fly. And as a matter of fact, as Terry knows, when players start to drop, I get anxiety. That freaks me out. I don't like it. And I am as upset as the rest of the people around the table. Yeah. Everyone else is like, I still got death saves. And I'm like, you're gonna die. And it's my fault.
Adam's the only DM in the world that's flipping the table because he's fucked it up. So fuck this. I'm going home. But to go back to the original question, I like the template, but for other things, not for Beholders. Because I think I personally want that satisfaction of I beat Beholder proper, full strength. But that's perfect for, like we said, giants. Your juvenile teenage giant whose voice keeps breaking.
He's as tall as a Goliath.
Who's trying to roar at you. What was that?
All right, so do we have any final thoughts about these three? Is there any unique role-playing encounters that you would want to bring to the table with these guys? We're going to cover Xanathar himself in a future episode. We're going to cover all the other kinds of Beholders and Beholder layers the next time we talk about monsters. So is there anything else for these three, or the eye rays, or the basic Beholder mechanics?
My final thought is, yes, there's the satisfaction of going out to kill Beholder proper if that's what you want, but I would recommend using these as just part of the puzzle. Put a puzzle in there and think outside of the box. It's not always to kill. It should be to try and have one person specifically survive, to try and get through an area, to try and get in, retrieve something, and get out. Use these to make a puzzle more challenging instead of just always being just to kill the Beholder, because that is probably quite unlikely.
Dave, any final thoughts?
I like how versatile they are. If I was going to get into something like a Spectator, I would probably get it in a way that I'm going to make it have that conversation with the quiet player. I don't want like you said, it targets the leader, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to use that to my advantage. I'm going to use that to try to help one of my players maybe come out of their shell and roleplay a little bit better.
Yeah.
The Gazer, I mean, I know of a couple of players in my my campaign we're still doing online. They would just eat that up. They would love to have that conversation with it.
Yeah.
They would love to just deal with this.
They'd love to just deal with this.
Exactly, right?
Exactly, right?
They're shitty people.
You're shitty people.
Calvin.
Two of them together.
The two Gazers just getting higher pitched and higher pitched until one of them just has an aneurysm.
One of them does the talking, but one of them just keeps laughing at what the other one says. Yeah. So one of them is like, you do. He just thinks he's the funniest thing ever.
Right,
they're fucking gremlins now, is what they are.
I mean, yeah. But no, I think there's good roleplay opportunity with these guys. They're not just big balls of eyes and death.
Yeah, and I think that's what people use them for. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, my last thought is, do you roll the random eye stalks ahead of time?
No.
If you know they're going to run into them.
No.
You don't do that ahead of time?
Nope.
I've seen an argument for it just to speed up play, and so that you have a little bit more control over, because the Beholder can be used now more for role-playing than ever before, because you're charming and luring people in, or you're putting them to sleep and you're getting them, or you're using telekinesis, you're subjugating, you're getting minions, you've got gas spores you've set up in your lair. These guys are like dragons as far as set pieces go, right? So you can really make them more than just a monster in the woods like the Tarrasque. There's more to them now. So because of that, well, first of all, I give them common.
Yeah, I would too. That's a no-brainer.
If it's going to be a role play heavy one, I'm going to give them common, or a C-3PO translator.
Yeah. There's no reason why they couldn't learn common. But
the idea that they would know, because they've planned for every eventuality, and that's in there, I like the idea, or I've seen the idea that I kind of like, of them rolling it ahead of time, and just by numbers. Just, I know, as everyone else is rolling their initiative and figuring it out, I'm rolling a shit ton of D10s, and just recording what order they go in.
Yeah, even if it's in the spirit of fair play after the encounter, you turn that sheet over to the players and just be like, boom, that's the order we went with. Remember?
Yeah, it's still random. You're just doing it ahead of time. And you kind of get an idea that, hey, I'm going Disintegration Ray heavy this round.
No, I like the idea of making them sweat a little bit. There's a little
tension.
more anxiety, right? There's more intrigue. They're waiting for it. The anticipation.
And they know...
Hearing the clickety-clack of the math rock, that just... There's
if you're
something
open
about
rolling,
it.
right? They know number 10's death rate. They know whatever. Yeah. But for speed of play, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing it that way, Adam, because, like I say, you can turn the sheet over afterwards and be like, look, that's the order. That's the order we did.
Yeah.
You know?
So I can find an argument for both sides. I like rolling it in the moment because I want my players to see my reaction to go, shit, all right.
But I'm going to make that noise anyways.
Yeah, you're going to have that moment to fuck with them.
The glance up. How many hit points do you have?
That is one of my favorite questions of, so how's everyone doing?
Yeah.
Hold on, I got to look something up.
That'll do it. Or just simply getting halfway through flipping through pages and then closing the book and going, fuck, I guess. All right. Okay.
Right, just that little bit of fear that you can see in their eyes at that moment.
That you are slightly out of
That
control.
is why I DM. Right?
You're in it to fuck with the players.
That's why I like doing it on Roll20 right now, because I can just screenshot that look. And I have it for later. It's sustaining.
All right, so that's it for this week's episode on Beholders. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube, as well as dozens of other podcast apps. You can also find us at www.itsamimic.com or email us at info@itsamimic.com. Thanks for listening to the It's a Mimic podcast, and make sure to check us out next week when we continue our discussion on condition effects.
You've reached the end of another episode of the It's a Mimic podcast. Connect with us at itsamimic.com. Don't forget to subscribe and hit those share buttons. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.
Okay, if you guys could have any, eye-based power, what would it be? You know, like the Beholders are shooting rays and shit out of their eyes. You yourself, what would your eye power be? It doesn't have to be limited to the D&D stuff.
Sure.
Let's roll for it.
Oh, God. The thing with these, we got put on the spot. What did I get?
Terry, you got a 19. Dave, you got an 18. I got a 2.
Can I hold my action?
No, you go first. It's fine.
I guess I would... Okay, this is going to sound really I guess the classic X-ray vision, but that's just for convenience, really.
What in your average day do you need to see through things for?
Okay, good point.
Because like X-ray vision to me is like you see a skeleton when you look at someone. It's not like you're looking at their undies and stuff, right?
Right.
So
I never understood why X-ray vision stops at clothes.
Right. So
yeah. Or more like MRI vision, MRI scan vision would be good. That'd just be great. How's your day going? It's going great. Okay, well, you have stage 4 cancer, so you really need to fix that.
I like it.
Dave, what about you?
Well, you said an eye power. I would love to just be able to close them and immediately go to sleep. Right? That would be the best thing.
That's all you need.
Instead of having to do that thing where we pretend to be asleep for a long time,
yeah,
that's
and
how we
just,
fall asleep.
And it just happens, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, just like instantly.
Actually,
That's
I
my
like
kind
those.
of eye power right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I completely lost what I was going to say because I got distracted.
Dave Jones is brilliant.
Yeah, that was really good.
Makes sense to me.
I would. Oh no! You know what? I want to be able to see people's auras to tell when they're lying.
You're not allowed to have that.
Oh, first of all, poker, great. I'm going to the casino, right? I'm gonna be rich because of this. Mm-hmm. And second of all, I would just abuse the shit out of that all of the time in my personal life.
Yeah.
Like, hey, how's your day? Pretty good. Was it? Because you look a little purple today.
Yeah, I don't think
No, you can't let them know that you can do it.
I don't think I'd like to know because I'd be too suspicious. Because sometimes there's I wouldn't say innocent reasons people are lying, but they maybe just be trying to protect you from stuff or save you from the.
I just don't want to get into the conversation today.
Yeah, that's it. But you may just start getting really suspicious. Why would they lie to me? Why would they lie?
I don't think you could ever have a relationship again. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Okay.
But actually, it's the same thing with mine, though. Nobody wants to walk around and automatically see their friends or each other. You should get that looked at. I'm really sorry. Nobody wants that.
I feel like yours would be really useful if you work for the TSA.
Yeah.
In the States, right? You don't need much. You just instantly know when people have shit on them.
Yeah.
Oh, yours would be bad. Do you have any idea how many people have things in their butts just walking around?
No, tell me.
Actually, I have that stat.
As a matter of fact, I was reading on the... Never mind.
2 out of 3 people in this room. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to an It's a Mimic production.
Okay, you're done, Gary.
Have fun with that edit, Dan.